Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Triple N Photography. I am Dr. Nik Nikam. I'm going to give you some tips on how to practice taking portrait pictures in the comfort of your living room, dining room, or the garage. Let me start off by showing you my setup here. I am doing this in a little dining room setup, and here's my kitchen. And here is the manikin which I'm going to be using to test the various lightings and things like that. Here's a brighter picture of this one, but my setting was where there was very slight light coming from the kitchen, no light in this area, and the distance here is probably 8 feet or so. But just to get you some concepts, that's what I'm more interested in. So let us begin with some of the premises. I used Nikon D750 camera along with Altura flash, which was attached to the camera. Of course, if you have a flash, which is a separate one in the form of a boom box, it would come out much better. And also remember, as long as the subject is close to the wall, there are going to be shadows. So those are some of the things I want to highlight and get some idea as to how you can turn your garage or living room into a portrait studio. Luckily, my walls are gray, so I don't have to buy a big screen or something like that. One of the things that you may want to consider is to paint one wall of your living room or dining room, preferably living room, where you can have a depth so that you can use that as a backdrop, so you don't have to worry about buying a separate screen. Probably cost you like $10-15 to paint one wall with a gray paint, and you're set to go. Next, I used the kit lens, which is 24 to 120, just for the demonstration purpose, and it has an f-stop focal length of 4.0, and of course the ISO was set to 100. This was done manually, and let us look at some of the pictures and see what we can learn from these pictures. And here's the first picture, and since this was taken straight with the flash falling on the face, as you can see, the shadow is very minimal here, but at the same time some of the face is more lit than the other areas, depending on where the flash is actually falling. And you can also see very sharp eyes and the facial features. One of the things that I don't like to see is to make everybody look like white. I hate that. All their faces are like painted with chalk. I want to bring out the natural skin tones in the person who is getting the picture. So in that way, you want to keep your lighting just enough to light the subject, but not to turn the subject into like a white person. That's not the purpose. And this is supposed to be gray, and this is sort of looking lighter gray, which tells me that the flash that I used was little more than what was needed for this particular picture. So this is what I learned from this picture. Of course, if you're shooting straight in front of the subject and the light is coming right on the face of the subject, then the shadow may not be a big issue. Now let us look at some other features here. And of course, these pictures were all, I had to show you, these pictures were all trimmed from the original one. And let me go back and show you what the original one looked like. This is what the original one looked like, and this picture was trimmed so that I just get what I really want. As you can see, there are electrical switches, and here's a little lamp, but nobody knows once the picture is trimmed, it looks like it was all designed to do that. And since I had only 24 to 120 millimeter lens, If you have a 70 to 200 millimeter lens, then you can really zoom into the exact size of the picture that you want to take. As a result, you are not going to be losing all these pixels here that have been cut off from this portrait. So that's the second important lesson we learned from this one. Let's move on to some of these other pictures here. Let me see. Now we are beginning to see some shadow here. This shadow was created by me using the flash, holding the camera in a vertical position and the flash coming from the left side. And since the flash is coming from the left side, you see the left side of the face lighted more, sorry, the right side of the face lighted more, and here we see a shadow being cast on the left side here. So that's something to keep in mind, because this is something we can eliminate by bringing the subject much farther from the wall if you have enough depth. That's why I said you want to take the long side of the room so that you have much more room to move around, so you can get far away from the wall, and also you can get further away from the subject so that the picture would not cast a shadow on the background drop. But at the same time, as you can see, this picture has been adjusted so that it is looking lighter than the original picture, where it had a beautiful almost matching gray color of the wall that is behind it. So it all depends on how we adjust these various parameters like exposure and contrast. I have just changed maybe the contrast and exposure just a little bit, but beyond that I have not done any other touch-up, just to highlight the setup for a portrait, keeping in mind which side the light is coming and looking at these shadows and see how we can eliminate these shadows. And here's another example which looks even brighter, but again we have this shadow, but by cutting it close from the original picture, which was like this, now you can see the shadow sort of blends with the rest of the background, and it may not look as obvious as it was in the previous picture, because now this half of the picture is well lighted, whereas this half of the picture is slightly darker, and it gives a beautiful contrast. Let's look at another picture here. And here's another picture where we have a beautiful gray, uniform gray color, and I would like to keep the skin texture as close as possible to that person's real skin texture. To me, that is exceedingly important. As I said, I see so many times on social media like Facebook or Instagram where everybody looks white, and if you see them in real life, they have dark skin. As a result, everything looks like it's bleached. That's not the purpose of taking portraits. Portraits is to enhance the features of the particular model we are taking portraits. Here's another example which obviously is shedding more light on the face, as you can see, and of course there is some reflection of the light here which may tell you that this is more exposed than it's supposed to be. And here is the exposure which I have turned on, and if I bring down this exposure, you can see the natural color. This is what it was shot at, and we can just increase this enough. That should be good enough, like maybe 1 stop or 0.75 stop, which will give the beautiful natural texture of the skin of that particular mannequin or model, whoever you are taking the photographs. And here's another example where the mannequin was turned looking towards her left, and we can see still the eyes are in focus. The best way to get these eyes in focus would be to put that one little square, single focal point in the middle of the eye, and then take the picture. Since my f-stop was 4, I don't have to worry so much about the depth of field where one eye may be in focus while the other eye may not be in focus. But here both eyes are in focus. But if you use lens something like 1.8 or 1.2, you have to keep in mind that part of the face may be in focus and part of the face may not be in focus, especially if the face is turned to the left or the right. Here's another example where if you look at the original picture, this is what the original picture was, and as you can see, this picture has been rotated because actually the model head is little slightly twisted to the left, but that all can be fixed in Lightroom by rotating the picture so that at the end you have a perfectly aligned picture that is natural. And as you can see, we still get this shadow, and that can also be eliminated by making it as part of the natural background by just trimming a little more here, trimming a little more here, and something like this. And it may look like a vignette, but nonetheless this highlights the most important part of the picture, which is the model's face, eyes, nose and lips, of course. And here's another example which also highlights, and again, as I said, in order to avoid this, the model has to be much further away from the back wall, and you also can be further away if you use 70 to 200 millimeter lens and a separate flash to light up the right side of the model's face or the left side, depending upon which part you want to highlight. And let's move on to a couple of more examples here. And here's another example. Here's another one. And we can put these pictures not necessarily perfectly in the center, but by putting them in one edge or the other edge can bring in some different subtle points. And as you can see, the original picture was this big with all this one with my tablecloth, all the things that are behind, which you don't have to worry about, because once you trim the picture you can do it. If you don't like the way it looks, then you can basically move the picture and cut off some of the hair here, and now we have a different look altogether. So just being creative is the name of the game, which I am trying to explain in this particular video. So I would suggest you get a mannequin like this. Let me go to a better picture here. Get a mannequin like this. I think it costed me like $40 on Amazon, and you just put them anywhere you can. But the most important thing that you need is depth. You can get a fiberglass table for like $50 from Costco or Sam's, and put the table lengthwise, so you can put the model at the end of the table, so it will be at least 60 inches from the wall. Then start using your lens. I have a 85 millimeter 1.8 prime lens, but I didn't really use it because I just wanted to see, when we are taking natural pictures in a business meeting or in events, how we can use this 24 to 120 millimeter lens so that we can zoom in as much as possible and still have room to take regular photographs. So this way it helps you to get beautiful pictures which really accent the model and not make everybody look like white skin or lighter skin. That's not the purpose. I hope this has been useful to you. My name is Nik Nikam, and please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for your time.